Fancy Meat Computers. How are everybody? How is everybody? How are everyone? Etc. How's the volume? There we go. Alright. Cool. Oy. Yeah. Good. Comment ça va? Ça va. It was a bit of a rough night for us. The baby has a bit of a cough and was up 5 times in the night. Yeah. So, you know, not a lot of sleeping went on in our house in general, but, you know, we'll try to muscle through. Poor guy. It's not a bad cough, it's just like a cough, you know? It's not surprising that he picks up little bugs every once in a while because, you know, he's in the phase where he's actually licking floors. So, you know, basically, and he's like, it's a terrible combination of him becoming mobile because he now knows how to crawl and can navigate the house reasonably effectively. Yet he's still in the phase where everything he sees has to go in his mouth, so he's just like a little, just like a little vacuum cleaner. He's a cross between a vacuum cleaner and a slug because he leaves a trail of slime everywhere he goes. But yeah. This week is pretty chill so far compared to last week. Yeah, we're sort of in the calm before the storm, right? Wait, that's supposed to be a phrase. I'm joking. I do not lick floors. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're supposed to grow out of licking the floors. Yeah. He's slowly upgrading. Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of interesting because, like, he's a very large child. He's like 7 months. He's 8 months old today, right? However, the clothes that he wears, he's like very swiftly outgrowing like the top end of, well, baby clothes are kind of weird. Like they do them by date, like how old the kid is, but it really should be according to size because nobody really friggin' like maybe the dead center average kid can be in that like clothes range while the kid's that old, but yeah. Happy 8 months, yeah. Yeah. 2/3 of a year now. But yeah, so long story short, while being only 8 months himself, he is outgrowing clothes for an 18-month-year-old. So he's oh, thank you. Thank you. So he's just very large, you know? Yeah. Good morning. Yeah, babies, it's true. Like, once they start crawling, it's like the brain starts kicking in. It's like there's really like so much like motivational structure that's oriented around like I see it, I go to it, you know? It's like I want that, I have to go there. But yeah, he's enormous, but he's also not like pudgy, you know? Like some babies are like short and fat. Like we had this one jumper that we got in the sort of flurry of baby clothes that people threw at us when they heard we had a kid, or heard we were having a kid. And one of them, it was like about yay tall, about yay around, and like the fabric stretched this way, like that. And it's like, wow, are you designing clothing for a baby or a beach ball? But yeah. Felix is on his way to being that one buff baby from Boss Baby. Possibly. Possibly. So, some actual serious questions. How many people did the course evaluation? I'm going to wait till the end of the week to see about that, just because, you know, I actually have to inquire with actual people, and I don't want to bother them too much, so, yeah. When will the marks for midterm 2 be released? We're currently working on them, but I think possibly Friday. I think it might take us until Friday to get all the test cases together, just because we couldn't, like, for, you know, obvious reasons, the test cases weren't done ahead of time, so now we're scrambling to do them. So if you could just give us until Friday, that would be appreciated. Yeah, the course evaluation website isn't letting you log in right now. Uh-oh. Might be because they are rolling out the MFA stuff today. What's the MFA stuff? What's MFA? Yeah. Well, you say that. You promised me that bothering the evaluations office they won't mind being bothered. But let me tell you, there's nothing more annoyed than a bureaucrat being told to do their job. Oh, multi-factor authentication. Yeah, possibly. Does the mug say my name on it or just a big N? It's just a big N. It's got an N on both sides, though. There we go. 360 Muggo-Vision. Yeah. Oh, maybe. Yeah, I'm a fan of multi-factor authentication. They don't have super stretchy baby clothes, like clothes that grow as your baby grows. So here's the open secret about baby clothes, right? If you're paying more than like $5, you're paying way too much for like one of those shirts that buttons around the diaper. The baby clothes should be made of as cheap a material as possible, really, because the baby's probably only going to be in those clothes for 1 month, right? And if you have, like what happened to us, where, like it's just like, oh my god, I was going to say something disgusting. There was, like, this giant boil of baby clothes, and by announcing we were expecting a baby, it was like popping this boil, and, like, pus and baby clothes just spray forth from it. Never-ending stream. That's kind of what it felt like. So, you want them as cheap as possible because the kid's not going to be in them very long. It's kind of like shoes. It's like, it's ridiculous to pay more than like $10 for baby shoes because they're only going to be in them like, you know, what, like maybe a month or two? Yeah. What am I drinking? Oh, it's just tea. Just tea. I'm glad you appreciated that. Anyway, so we should probably get on with it. But you gotta keep your baby drippy. What? Yeah. When you see babies wearing Air Jordans. Yeah, like, let me put it to you this way, right? There are people who are trying to raise children, and there are people who think of their children as dress-up dolls, right? What kind of tea is it? It's Orange Picot. You guys are really trying to distract me from getting to this lecture material, aren't you? Drippy means stylish. Oh. I see. You people. You people and your new phrases for things. My god. Drippy now? First it was dank and now it's drippy? What is it, like, you're so dank that, like, moisture is actually collecting on you and dripping off of you, so that's why drippy means stylish now? Doesn't even make any sense. But I suppose if it were designed to make sense, then it wouldn't be a thing that Zoomers say to confuse their parents. Yeah. So, what do we have? Do we have a dedicated database course in the CompSci program? Yes, we do. It's 3DB3. And right now, ask Mark how 3DB3 is going. Yeah. My god. So, what does orange pekoe tea taste like? It tastes like Earl Grey tea, but with no bergamot. Yeah. Anyway, so, talking about tables. Unflavored water gang. Yeah, 3DB3. The DB stands for database. No. No, I'm trying to restrict my coffee input. Anyway, so so let's talk about databases. So we have, if you recall from last time, we were talking about databases. We were setting up an example of a database, primarily as a, I'm gonna start talking for a bit, and I'm gonna re-enable this chat in a little bit, because y'all are too distracting. So we're developing this example of a database table, a database containing several tables. It's doing a video rental store. And we were just going through the SQL commands that are required to construct the database. According, in some databasing software, you don't necessarily have to construct these commands directly by typing. It can sometimes be faster to do it directly by typing. But even if you are filling out a form and pressing, send, that form is getting converted to one of these SQL queries. So it's important to, we're going to be understanding the underlying language, right? So the create table command creates a table, as you might expect, but it creates it with no entries, obviously, because you haven't actually entered any of the data yet. So, to insert data into a table, we insert it one row at a time. We need to list the field names and the values. Any omitted fields get a value of null. So, there we go. Insert into, then you specify the table name, in this case, movies. You then specify values. 101, Casablanca. Genre is drama romance. Rating is partially garbage. All statements in SQL are semicolon terminated. That's something you should get used to if you want to program in any language other than Python and Haskell. So I've inserted this set of values into the table. The way that you view the table is select all from movies. So you can see that Casablanca is in there. So some of you in the chat, I imagine, will say, but you didn't enter this bit. And it's true, I didn't enter that bit. How this works, what this does is it specifies which fields you are actually populating. So, for example, if I were to insert Back to the Future, but leave off the rating information, this is how you would do it. insert into movies, values, 102, Back to the Future, and it's a comedy adventure. You specify the schema of the values that you're putting in up here. So, ID, title, and genre. Semicolon. Has no column named title. Really? Title. Oop, that's because I misspelled it. Whoops. Alright. Drop table movies. That deletes a table. No tables remain. Now I'm going to fix it so that it's spelt correctly. There we go. And Casablanca. There we go. So now, if I view, select star from movies. Good. Sometimes you just enter it incorrectly and you just want to fail it on a syntax error. There you go. You'll notice that Back to the Future has the relevant, it has the rating absent. There we go. Will select star from movies return all the values in movies? Yes. So what that is viewing with no filter. So there we go. So I'm just going to insert a few more entries into this just to populate it. So we've also got 103, Monsters Incorporated, which is an animation comedy. It's rated G for garbage. Field of Dreams, which is like one of the only ones on this list that I haven't actually seen, and I have no idea what it's about. Fantasy drama. It's partially garbage. $57.93. Can't mention. Let's not do Life of Brian. Let's do Monty Python and the Holy Grail comedy. Restricted. And finally, "12 Angry Men," which is a courtroom drama. But it's also partially garbage. Can you insert something into specific columns, like, say, inserting a rating into Back to the Future? Yes, you can, but we're going to get to that eventually. So, just, you know, hold tight. We're going to get there. There we go. So, if we view our table now, Um, the Holy Grail is rated R. I'm pretty sure it has nudity in it. Certainly it has suggestive themes. I don't know, maybe it's not rated R. Life of Brian certainly does, because it has full frontal. Is it rated PG? My goodness. Well, we'll see how to fix that later on. So, Abdul, we will talk about fuzzy matching on strings in a few slides' time, so please bear with me. So, good, we know how to insert data. So, let's talk about how to view the data. So, you may have wondered what that star is for in Select Star from Movies. Well, that's a wildcard character that stands for all fields. If you wanted to view just the IDs, you would specify just the IDs. If you wanted to see the IDs and the titles, you would see ID and title. If you wanted to see title and rating in the reverse order, there you go. Is there some way to pretty print the table, or is that something you wouldn't really be concerned with? Not in SQLite. In other databasing software, you will have like proper views with like tab separated tables and stuff like that. But since this is a command line operation with a command line tool, this is about as good as we get, you know? Yeah. So to make the data more visually appealing, you like build an app around the data, right? It's like the interface to Facebook is just a program that makes interacting with a database more visually appealing, you know. But this isn't a course on UI design. I believe there's a 4th-year course on UI design. It's called Human Machine Interfaces, I think. But anyway, so you're specifying which fields to return, which table to return them from, which rows to select, and what order to sort them in. So the where clause allows you to filter the results according to specific Boolean conditions. So select rating title from movies where rating is equal to PG. So that's all of the PG movies in our list, where rating equals PG or ID is less than 103. So there you go. Back to the Future is also included. So you can just do like general Boolean expressions the same way that you've been doing with your programming so far in Python. So additionally, we have this like operator, which is kind of new. So this is what's called fuzzy matching. Oh, that's a different course. So a fuzzy match it's kind of like a glob pattern, which of course you probably don't know what that is either. But essentially what you do is you specify a field. So you say like genre, then rather than saying equal sign, you say like. Why is the rating for Back to the Future not there? Because I demonstrated how to leave something out by leaving something out of that particular entry. Listen, Dragoons, I know you're trying to distract me from the lecture, so please keep the unrelated content to a minimum, or I'm going to have to put you in a timeout, okay? So, fuzzy matching. So if you include the percent sign, that constitutes a multi-character wildcard match. So you can put comedy in the middle, and it'll select anything that has comedy in anywhere in the string. You can also do this to like capture, for example, the letter A, which pretty much everything has, or the letter T, which fewer things have. So if you lose the one off the front, that restricts it so that only things which start with that string match. And if you remove the back of it, if you remove the back percent sign, then you will only match things which have comedy at the end. So that's how fuzzy matching works. So one further thing that you can do with these, which is, kind of trivial, is it like regex or regular expressions for SQL? It's not nearly as flexible as regular expressions. It's like you take it's like taking like the idea of a multi-character wildcard character or a repeated wildcard character from regular expressions. Take just that idea and not any of the rest of it, and you've got fuzzy matching. Although it's probable that you can get, like, I'm sure that some SQL vendor somewhere allows you to do regex searching over database entries. And if you don't know what regular expressions are, don't worry, you will learn them in 1xc3. I think I may have missed it, but does %, comedy, % mean that any values that contain comedy regardless of placement? Yes. Regardless of placement, yes. So what it is it's like 0 to many irrelevant characters before this, 0 to many irrelevant characters after this. So even if the string is composed just of the word comedy, it'll still match it. But it's good to begin thinking like this for when we get to regular expressions next semester, if I'm teaching it, because I still don't know. I think they're having trouble finding sessionals. But anyway, so one more thing that we can do, which is fairly trivial, is we can sort. So in theory, if this was Twitter, everything in Twitter is sorted by the date that it's added to the database, right? Or the timestamp. But since this data doesn't have timestamps, we'll just have to settle for order by title, sure, in ascending order. There we go. So it's ordered by title in ascending order, ordered by title in descending order, and it reverses it. Very, very swift, very easy, very not difficult to understand. Databasing shouldn't be too difficult, this level of it. It can get complicated at the deep end, but you don't have, like, here it's not too bad. So, yes, 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 yes. There we go. All of that was just highlighted versions of stuff that I already gave you the examples, so we don't have to go through those. So, let's talk about SQL in Python. So, SQL.py. Get it? There we go. So, similarly to how we interacted with CSV files, JSON files, and YAML files, we can also interact with SQLite, the SQLite interface, through our favorite programming language for the moment, Python. Python has a library module built in, which, well, actually, you might have to download it, but let's see. Is there anything about pip install? Doesn't seem to be. Downloading instructions on the SQLite 3 website. Python has a library module which you can use to access SQLite 3 databases. You need to specify the file name of the database file, and the basic pattern is highly similar to file I/O, to general file I/O, with the exception that you don't actually have to create the file handle. It'll create a database object which you interact with through a bunch of methods. So, we import SQLite 3. We say our database is equal to SQLite3.connect, then specify the database name. In our case, videostore.db. Videostore.db. We then, of course, close the database when we're finished with it. So Python will automatically convert some Python data types into SQL data types. So Python's none becomes SQL's null. Python's int becomes integer. Float becomes real. Both text and date in SQL are strings in Python. So there you go. All SQL statements are passed as a string into the database. A cursor is needed to iterate over the results of an SQL query. So, cursor. Cursor is an old word. Maybe you guys... Do you guys know what cursor means? Or do you just, like... I don't know. Can you use with open for opening and closing the database? I don't believe you can. I don't think so. Maybe you can, but I don't think that would work. So anyway, this little blinking square here, that's a cursor, right? Like a mouse cursor. Well, yeah, the mouse cursor is a different cursor, but you also have a text cursor as well. Yeah. Yeah, see? I had a feeling that you guys wouldn't be fully familiar with cursors in general. So the cursor is the command entry point, right? Or the text entry point, as well as the the little icon that shows up on your screen that moves around when you move your mouse. This little square box here, which moves and lets me type stuff in, that's also called a cursor. So that's what they call that blinking thing. Yes! It's not a... well, a cursor is also someone who curses, but I believe that would be spelt with an E, not an O, before the terminal R. But anyway, so the cursor, right here, is the point at which you enter commands into the SQL prompt. In command line interfaces in general, the cursor is the point at which you enter, say, bash commands. When you're editing a Word file, the blinking line is the cursor where you're adding stuff to the file. That's what the cursor is. But yeah, but anyway, so what we want to do is we want to create a cursor within the database object, right? So this is like a virtual cursor, and I know, like, it's a computer, everything's virtual, but it's virtual in the sense that you don't actually get to see the blinking square, right? It's just, like, think of it as a command entry point, right? So, So did I blow everybody's brains away with my definition of what a cursor actually is? Hopefully. So, cursor is equal to database.cursor. You have to instantiate the cursor object. So this is kind of an interesting one, because, like, you use one object to instantiate another, and that's what the one that you actually enter the commands with. If you don't close the database, does the database file keep taking up memory like another file would? I think so. Good. Excellent. I love it. I love giving people information that they didn't have before. So, cursor.execute allows us to enter in a generalized SQL command into our connected database, right? So I can, for example, select star from movies. Notice no semicolon is necessary, although it might be. We'll see. Then, what happens there... Where are we here? There we go. Once you have... If you execute a command that has a return result, that return result will be stored in the cursor object itself, which can actually be... I believe you can iterate over it using a for loop, but... let's just use these guys for the time being. So, print cursor dot fetch all. You can read it one line at a time with fetch one, or you can read it all with fetch all. So, there we go. Python 3, SQL.py. There you go. Ta-da! There's the database data. You can also add stuff, which we'll get to. I shouldn't get too far ahead of the slides. So, we can use a for loop to loop through the results of a select query. Of course we can. So if you capture the results here of the cursor, so there are two ways that you can access the output. Number one is by capturing the result of the method invocation by saying, for example, data is equal to cursor.execute. In that case, you can just for loop over the data for line in data, print data, line, I meant line. There we go. Bing, bang, boom. And there you get it printed out very nicely. Notice that these are being stored as tuples, not lists. So when you fetch, you get a list of tuples. But each line itself is just a tuple, not a list. Better be sanitizing those queries. Oh my gosh, yes. Trust me, we're going to get there. The baby babbling is so cute. I read you should talk to them normally because babbling is them trying to speak real language. He is probably saying something very intelligent. It's just incoherent. Yes! He does this, like, he has a favorite exploring sound now, which is like, he just goes like... something like that. But it's like... Yeah. But yeah, he's a cute guy. But yeah, that's true. We have been making a conscious effort not to baby talk him too much. So databases are stored in a list of tuples. No. You should not need to know how it's being stored in the database at all. All you need to know is that once you fetch it into Python, they dump it into a list of tuples for you. Like, you can think of it as a list of tuples, right? But you shouldn't, like, you should leave you should leave the storage mechanism of the database abstract. You shouldn't need to inquire. All right? So what is the functionality of fetch all and fetch one? Well, fetch one fetches just one line, and you fetch them all in sequence, whereas fetch all gets all of them at once. It's like the difference between write line and write or read line and read when you're doing file I/O. If it's stored as a tuple, does that mean you can't change the individual items once created? Not unless you cast it as a list or something like that. If the entries are stored in tuples, how are you supposed to edit them? By casting it to a list. So once you have it in this form, you have it in Python, which means you can perform all of the data manipulation tactics that we've been performing so far. You can apply those to these guys, and then if you want to repopulate the database with them, then you can write more lines of code which do that. It feels like the fact they are stored in a tuple will make it harder to interface. Interact with the database object. Again, all you have to do is read it into a secondary data structure, cast it to a list, and if you want it mutable, you can have it mutable. Honestly, it's like it being stored in a tuple is like no big thing in Python, right? That's one of the few nice things about Python, is that it's really no big thing. So, yes. Good. So, if we add the line below, the rows we get back will be dictionary-like objects where we can pull out a field by name. So, if you say database.rowFactory is equal to SQLite3.row, then you can get them as dictionaries. And dictionaries are, of course, mutable, so that should work. So db.rowFactory is equal to SQLite3.row. Let's see how that works. Row object. But can we cast it as a dictionary? That's the real question, is what is it castable as? Yeah, it's castable as a dictionary. So you can access things through field names if you prefer, and it's a mutable data structure, so go nuts. So, we can also insert things from Python as well. So, we can do any SQL query we want from Python. We can do select, insert, create table, drop table, any of them. We can insert values from Python variables into an SQL query. Using the cursor.commit command ensures that changes are saved. So in order to save the data, you have to do cursor.commit. So is .rowFactory an attribute? Or ROW. So I think the way that it works is the SQLite 3 library contains a definition for row. Like, row will be an object, right? And by setting rowFactory as, like, it's probably an attribute, yeah. Well, I mean, it is an attribute because this is an assignment operation, not a method call, right? So, yeah, basically we set one attribute of the database object to another object, which is probably like a blank one that it instantiates. So like when it's pulling the data, it tries to use that data type instead of the default one, which is tuple. If so, what's with SQLite 3 row? What's the dot row? Yeah, I think I answered those questions. Good questions. Thank you very much. So, so let's write something. Let's comment this out for the time being, and let's add something new to the database. So we'll say m is 17, t is equal to beauty, and the beauty. Genre will be animation, musical, comedy, tragedy, slice of life. Rating is equal to garbage. So, we can take this information, which constitutes a record in our database, and we can add it to the database using cursor.execute. Execute, execute. Insert into movies, values, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, comma, a tuple containing MTG and R. So there we go. This is the safe way to do this. So if we save that up, execute. Oh, cursor object has no... Oh. Database.commit? Might be database.commit. There we go. Alright. So that's an error in the slides. That should be database.commit. Anyway. So if we take a look now, select star from movies, you'll see that our new entry is in there. Now, this is an interesting thing, right? Because I never closed access to this database from this command prompt, right? This thing's been running in the background the whole time. This is what is meant by atomicity, right? The SQL processes are not, like, they don't maintain mutually exclusive hold on the database file itself. They're a process that runs when it needs to do something with the database. It goes in, it does what it needs to do with the database, it stops, then it pulls back again. If something else goes in, makes a modification and pulls back again, this guy can go back in again, take a look, and the modification is made. So they're separate processes that are running in parallel, right? What does... Okay, so two things. What does the question mark mean? And two, what does atomicity mean? Atomicity. The property of being atomic. Or it's like atomic turned into an adverb or something. So yeah. Boy, he's talkative today. So I think I'm going to have the time to answer these questions, and then we'll stop for today. But so the question marks are specialized tags. They're placeholders that are left in the string by you so that these values can be safely added to the string by the execute method. We're going to see why this is important later on in this topic. We'll hopefully get to it Friday. Atomicity means like when you apply the term atomic to an operation, what that means is that the operation cannot be interrupted. So it's like an atom in the chemical sense, at least, you know, back when we thought that atoms were the indivisible components of matter, right? That was the original atomic theory, is that atoms were the indivisible components of matter. So for an operation to be atomic, it must start and end without being interrupted, right? So yeah, if the database is transient in memory, shouldn't it automatically close itself? Well, it would. If it were transient in memory, there'd be no way for us to connect up Python to it. It has to be an actual file. But because it's not transient in memory, we can do this kind of stuff. But yeah, if it were transient in memory, all the data would be lost when we ended the SQLite process. So yeah, this only works because we're working with an actual file in the actual file system. So would it be easiest, would the easiest way to change the data in the table be directly or just to alter the keys if we load it in as a dictionary? Well, it depends, right? There's really no easy way of interacting with a database, right? But let's put it this way. The database is intended to be your permanent data storage, right? So if the permanent data storage is wrong, then it should be updated. However, if the permanent data storage is not, like, if it's not that the permanent data storage is wrong, you just need to perform some transformation on it, then that's something you would want to do in Python. But if it's like, you know, all of these should be lowercase, but they're uppercase in the database, so I'm just going to convert them to lowercase in Python, it's like, no! Fix it in the database. Fix the database. But yeah. If you were only inserting 3 values, would you only need 3 question marks? Correct. Also, is it possible to delete an entry? Absolutely. We're going to be getting to it on Friday. Is Friday the last lecture? No. No, it is not. Last day of classes is Wednesday. We will have classes Tuesday and Wednesday. So we have 3 classes remaining in the semester. Thank you. I'm just assuming because it's the last week for some courses. No, not this one. Nope, I'm afraid that this ain't no arts class. We don't have the spare time in the schedule to just throw away the last half week. I've got important stuff to teach you. So yeah, yeah, although I will say that generally speaking, what I do with the last lecture of the semester is I make that a bring your questions Q&A study session, like a review session. So the last lecture is generally a review session, so please bring some questions. But yeah. Yeah. Sir, let's skip the middleman. I will pay you directly for your education and just sit on the floor next to you while you teach. Forget the institution. I mean, hey, I'm cool with that. I mean, there is a certain amount of benefit to being embedded in the university institution. It is a venerable institution, and I can't give you a bachelor's degree, you know, but, you know. What are you going to do? What's the difference between cursor.close and database.close? It seems that they both work. See, I would be inclined to do it at the level of database. It's possible that it's just like synonyms, you know? It's like closing the cursor is the same thing as the database. But it's possible that you can close a cursor and then open up a new cursor with the same database file, so you're like still connected to the file. But yeah, I'd have to look into it. Will the exam include database? It is testable. Databasing is testable on the exam. Most of the time there's a database question. Some of the time we're like, I don't know. Sometimes we don't test it, but most of the time we test it. So. Cool. Well, any other questions? These have been good questions. Wasn't somebody in the chat talking about self-replicating robots? There was an article about this recently, apparently. Self-replicating robots. Oh, bloody hell. Well, of course it's BS. It's a friggin' CNN article. Engineering and technology. Scientists build self-replicating living robots. U.S. researchers have discovered a new form of biological reproduction and have created what they say are the world's first living robots that can self-replicate. Xenobots. I mean, aren't they just copying nature's homework, though? Like, would you be able to show you how to alter entries quickly? Yeah, sure. I'll just skip to the slide where it tells you how to do that. It's update. You have to be careful, though. Be careful to always set, like, target only the specific entry, like, target one entry using a where clause, then use update, because if you use update without a where clause, it will change every field in, like, it'll change that field in every entry. So, they used stem cells. Calling it robots is kind of, like, sensationalized, isn't it? That's not robots. Give me a break. Like, seriously. It's like, tell me how that's a robot. Also, if I may say, science, haven't you caused enough damage this decade? Do we really now have to start worrying about the Grey Goo scenario because of you people? Like, honestly. Jesus H. Christ. How do you stay in good health while having a job that requires sitting for hours on end? Good health. Well, number one, I try not to eat crap. That's a big one. I actually have been doing the push-ups every time somebody requests an extension, which has been good. But yeah, I don't know. When you have a baby and chores to do, you do get a certain amount of physical activity, you know? They will say they are preventing human extinction. By causing it? It's like, okay, we're preventing human extinction by preemptively causing human extinction. You know? Am I getting ripped? I don't know. We'll see. I think I have to start eating more eggs if I want to actually gain muscle mass, but I'd be content with just getting a bit stronger, you know? But, will next semester be on site? Your guess is as good as mine at this point, but, you know, I've been pretty pessimistic about it. Silicon Valley salamander moment. I don't know what that... is that a reference? I'd like to meet the science. Yes, we're being told so much to trust the science. It's like... Science does not require a definite article. Science is a verb. You science. You know? Science is not a noun, it's a verb. You perform science. Science is a methodology. You know? Yeah. Like... You should be very, very careful of people who are claiming more epistemological, how you want to say. You want to be very careful about people who are making epistemological claims in general. If it's like, oh, trust me, trust me, trust me, it's like, tell me why I should trust you, you know? Now it's like Zuckerbergs who work in Silicon Valley who don't understand human interaction and go implement sci-fi technologies that existed as warnings in literature. Oh, I get it. It's like the lizard people conspiracy theory, right? Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, it's like friggin' like Zuckerberg's now trying to implement like friggin' Ready Player One now. Like, what the hell is going on? You know? Like, Jesus. I, like, honestly, though, if we could just, like, avoid the Grey Goo scenario, that would be good. I think we can deal with most things except a Grey Goo scenario. Get us off this planet. As an international student already on campus, I am scared of this variant. Well, I'll put it to you this way, you know. Well, actually, you know what? I'm not sure I can say it on YouTube. Let's just say, do your own research and, you know, all the rest of it. Yeah, like, I actually have to be careful what I say on YouTube about this subject, or else they might yank my stream. Yep. Anyway, I probably should log off before I get myself canceled, so, take her easy, folks, and, we'll see you on Friday.